is called, you have to ask a Londoner, because hardly any Londoner actually will tell you things properly. Because no, we are in the city of Westminster. This is the central London borough, the richest one as well, because you got people like Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth, who lives here, the politicians, ambassador. So most of the people who live here, they're really, really rich, of course. Despite the fact that we have it's much quicker, it's much faster. And you live from King Cross International. So on the left-hand side, as you can see, there's a monitor. Now, again, coming back here, there's pretty work going on at the moment. Now, we have few churches as well. You might well want to visit. Slow down a little bit, Christian. On to your right, you will be, so this is the Westminster Cathedral. What's the difference? This is a Roman Catholic church, yeah? Because Westminster Abbey, it's the Anglican church. This is the Roman Catholic Cathedral. It's open all day, it's also free of charge. The style is Byzantine, but it's actually built around about the 19th century, the Victorian times, where the Victorians loved to build, things that were a reminder of the past. It's quite a beautiful church. The funny thing inside is, when you get the opportunity to visit, it's a free of charge, it's open all day until 7 o'clock. Of course, says exactly as it was. Imagine if you go to this pub on the top floor, you will see the napkin which was used by Queen Victoria when she was actually guest here at the Albert. They serve all the beer, fish and chips, anything that you can find in the pub. So before we saw Westminster Cathedral, the Roman Catholic Church, and now of course we're going to see the Westminster Abbey. Now the Westminster Abbey was built around about the 950, the first church, but what you see today was much more developed around about the 13th century by the King Henry III. It's the church that served exclusively the royal family, so coronation, funeral, baptism, they all done inside this church, and you will see now on to your right. 13th century main body, but the two towers that you see now on to your right also were built in 18th century in order to give an opportunity to people to visit from this way. So for century the entrance of the Abbey was on this side. If you want to visit the church, the entrance is £23, and you will enter from this way on the right. You get an audio guide included, and you can visit the 1,500. There are 3,500 people buried, so it's really much like a cemetery more than anything. But of course, you have Queen Elizabeth buried, you have Queen Anne. You go inside, you're not allowed to leave. You cannot take any pictures as well. So, place for the Abbey, but it's also the place for the Westminster Palace, which is the heart of the British government. At the moment, we have a disgusting given name. It's actually called the Elizabeth Tower, yeah? But of course, you know for the name of it. This is the Treasury, so it's one of the buildings where most of the work that is done here to look after all our money, also cultural department, and on the left, the arch is, of course, for the cabinet ballroom. So that's it. On to your right, this is a monument to remember all the people who died in the war, of course, the soldiers, sailors, and the officers. And on the right you have the Ministry of Defence. Look on the left, the gate, this is the entrance to number 10 Downing Street. This is where Boris Johnson still lives, and this is the place where the Prime Minister actually lives, with the called Whitehall Palace. The palace got completely burned down by fire. This is the only part left of the palace, and it was all painted, the ceiling was all painted by the ambassador, the Dutch ambassador of the day, called Anthony van Dyck, who will see what is buried actually in St. Paul's Cathedral. Now to your right, this used to be the ex-Ministry of War, which is now just going to be refurbished. It's going to be a 5-star hotel with several expensive apartments. Look on the left, this building with several pillars and columns is the office which deals with the Scottish Parliament. Scottish, of course, can have another referendum soon to decide if they want to stay with England or leave England. There's plenty to think about. And the road of Whitehall ends with a very interesting pub. This is the Silver Cross. It's an 18th century pub. Go and have a look inside, because it has 2 floors, still has a very old-fashioned. And now we come across the largest square in London. This is Trafalgar Square. It was built by John Nash by the wish of the King, George IV. Nash loved continent and he wanted to give London a bit of continental style. He built the square, of course, and 15 years later it was decided to dedicate the square to the Battle of Trafalgar, which was won, in fact, by the British thanks to the Admiral Nelson, which is still on the tallest pillar in the square here. Nelson, during the battle, was killed by French military. After 4 hours, of course, he even brought a poem to reassure everybody of the duty that he was actually on. Now, the northern part of the Trafalgar Square, you see the building on the left now? That's the largest national gallery in London, yeah? 2,200 paintings. Leonardo, Van Gogh, Michelangelo, Van Dyck, all the biggest Western known painters are actually in there. Everything is free of charge, so don't miss the opportunity to go and visit the National Gallery. It opens every day from 10 o'clock until 6 o'clock. On a Friday until 9 o'clock. Next to it there is also the National Port Company. Quite expensive, and in fact, only if you are part of a company. When the company pays, then you actually stay here. If you have to pay by yourself, it becomes quite difficult. On the left-hand side, come to the cabaret, the Kit Kat Club. This is basically the musical, original version of Cabaret, one of course that was also made into a movie with Liza Minnelli. And I treated myself for my birthday, last 30th of December. Bought a ticket, which was quite expensive, about £90, but it was amazing, you know, the show. Now, because we all have mobile phones and everything, if you want to see one of the shows in London, and you don't want to spend a fortune, remember, Today Tix. Download this app, it's called Today Tix. It's called. Right, we are on the River Thames now. There was never going to be London if there was no River Thames. And in fact, that's why the Romans in the year 43 stopped here, because there was a river. This is the second largest, longest river in England. It's navigable river, and it's also tidal. That means that we have the tide coming in and out. So when the tide comes in, the river goes up to 7 meters. Yeah, but London will never flood, because in Woolwich, far away from here, we have the barriers that if the level of the water goes very, very up, dangerously, of course, that will stop. Look at this pillar, sort of, on your right. This is the Cleopatra's Needle. Imagine that that pillar is actually older than London, has a 3,500 years, and comes from the Temple of Luxor, Egypt. Was a present that the Egyptians gave to the British after they supported them in the battle against the Ottoman. To your right, this is Waterloo Bridge. This is the longest bridge in London. It was made with a kind of stone that the more is exposed to light, the more clean himself by itself. Look at the bottom. Look underneath. It's very, very dark, because this side does not see the sun, of course. Yeah. It was all built mainly by women after the Second World War, when, of course, no men. Basically, a very low number of men, unfortunately, died out in the Second World War. Now on the left, this is the Somerset House, a beautiful building. It was owned by Caroline Brunswick, the wife of George III, and it's now converted into a coal-told gallery. It's an institute which has a beautiful collection of Rembrandt, Van Gogh, but it's a private museum, so you need to pay to get in. But the square of the Somerset House, very beautiful. Now look at those pubs, those boats that stay here, they're all pubs and restaurants. They both served into war in the past. Now they serve the clients to make sure that they have a much better way of. So we're going to be on a ferry, of course, in London. And so you find out that London is also a place that need to be seen from the river here. Right, look on the left. Garden with few houses. This is Middle Temple. This was used to be the old land in the old days was actually owned by the Knight of Jerusalem. Of course, they went to Jerusalem to get everything from the Holy Sepulchre, the promised Crusaders. Yeah. Then the land was actually sold to the lawyers, and it's now Middle Lane Temple. So basically, there are institutions on the left, places where the lawyers live, study, and have as well their institution, famous in courts. Yeah. The 5 of them in London. It's a quite big institution because, you know, if you pass to it, you know that you know the right people and you can get the right job if you are within that. This is the great hall of the Middle Temple. Not open to the public, I'm afraid, but you can walk inside the Middle Temple any time of the day. You can take lots of beautiful pictures here on the left. On the right, the restaurant Oxo. Now, because the River Thames it's owned by the Crown as well, you are not allowed to do any publicity, any advert. So what the Oxo did was, there used to be a factory that used to produce the Oxo, which was something that you use when you do your soup or your meat, the chicken stock in a way. Serve the community and still has a name, but nobody can blame them, they're doing publicity. Now there's plenty of work on the River Thames now. They are remaking the sewage pipe that needs to be done. On the left hand side, this neo-Gothic building used to be the site of a Carmelitan sisters or nuns, and on the left, look at this beautiful Renaissance building, the City of London College. A railway of Blackfriars, completely finished 2 years ago. Served, of course, the trains to get as far as possible. Look on to your right, the brown building with the chimney, and this is the largest modern gallery in Europe. It's the Tate Modern. That used to be a factory in the old days, and the chimney used to contribute to pollute all the London sky. Well, knows about Scientology, or have you heard about Scientology? Yeah? Look on the left, this is the church that is owned by Scientology here in London. They messed around loads of people actually, they made loads of people poorer, because they're very much after the money rather than, you know, to get you into towards the faith and prayers, I think. Anyway, we don't make any judgment. On the right hand side, this is the church of St. Botolph. St. Botolph was a saint origin from France. The church used to be always located outside the border of the city. And on the left, this is the College of Arms, where you can get your little coat of arms made. Look on the left, we have a view of St. Paul's Cathedral. That's where we're going now, of course. And to your right, the Millennium Bridge, which is, of course, very much visited. It was open for the year 2000. 6 months later, it was closed again because it was considered slightly dangerous, was moving a lot after the wind. They spent a few more money, and then now it's open and it's safe. So, as you can see now, well, there's no traffic today because it's Saturday, but the City of London, this is basically the area where you come here and work. So this is where we come and make money. In the West End, we go and spend them. That's more or less the idea. This is the area where we have the highest concentration of offices, banks, financial institutions, insurance company. From Monday to Friday, there are 450,000 people who come here to work in the morning, and at 5 o'clock they go home at 6 o'clock in the evening, between 5 and 6. So you don't want to be around here between 9 in the morning or 6 o'clock in the evening when there's all this rush hour coming in. Of course, nobody today is Saturday. The City of London is today the financial district, but coincidence, this is also the oldest site. It's one darkest building you see on your right. It was actually designed by Jean Nouvel, a very famous French architect. He has a few floors, and you can actually get a lift there, go all the way up and have a wonderful view of the City of London. There is also a beautiful and very trendy bar called the Madison Square Bar, all onto your right. You can go there anytime during the day, and of course you can also do shopping. The first floor is all shops. Now this is the 5th church built here on the site. The first one was actually built soon after the country was converted into a Roman Catholic religion. It was a small church in wood, completely burned down after nearly every building in London, at least, has been burned down once. So this is basically a newly church, yeah? Built middle of the 17th century by Christopher Wren, and I will tell you more about it as we're going, yeah? So please follow me. Now we have the sort of first week in November, pageantry, lots of companies. There is like a little parade in a way, yeah? So on the left, you had, of course, 17 children, who all died, unfortunately. She had as well a female lover within that as well. So it was a quite Amazing. An achievement. Right, so we're coming down now. As you can see, you notice that we've tried driving down. In fact, St. Paul's Cathedral, when it was built, was one of the highest hills of London, known as Ludgate Hill. Of course, now the level of the city is being slightly more leveled up, but more or less London is built on several hills. You probably don't notice anymore now, but definitely it was. And now, of course, we have the crossroad here. On to your right, you would go the area of Clerkenwell and a few, let's say, more a place where people live rather than things to see when you go through. So this is the Fleet Street. The name comes from the river, which is underneath us. It was covered in order to create a much more great connection with the rest of London. And if you go very slow here, if you look on the left now, you will see actually the spire and the entrance of the Church of St. Bride here on the left. It's the church usually associated with a journalist. It was here that Robert Murdoch actually married Jerry Hall. He's 89 years old, she's 76. After 10 years, 7 years I think now, they already divorced. Oh no, I didn't know. How could that happen? It was just such a happy wedding, you know. He's gonna pay so much money. It's actually the fourth weddings, I think. Murdoch is actually the patron of the newspaper, very rich man. Out to your right, there was that's the old Cheshire pub, which was built to accommodate the workers of the. Now, Fleet Street is a street full of lots of history. This is the place where the lawyers, of course, get trained, as I showed you before, the Middle Temple. And of course, this is a place as well where you have the Royal Court of Justice. Now, El Vino, look at this place on the left. This was the first place where allowed women to enter a pub, because before, women were not allowed to drink in a pub, you can imagine. The Church of St. Dunstan, here to your right, which is also the place where Romanian groups, actually, people meet as well inside. And if you look on the left now, you will see plenty of wigs from the shop of Stanley Lee. This is in fact the place where the barrister buy their wigs in toga. And of course, on the left, this is the Prince Henry room. It's actually referring not the actual Prince Henry now, but he was the son of James I, and is one of the few half-timbered houses. The old Bank of England is now a pub on to your right. It used to be a functioning as an old bank as well. And now you will see this is the pillar in the middle of the road. This is basically the border between the City of London and the City of Westminster. Look at the building on your right. It doesn't look like a church or a monastery. Nothing like that. This is the Royal Court of Justice. So it's a trial. It's a place for trial, and everything except crimes. Crimes are actually dealt somewhere else at the old Bailey. It was all built by White House, wonderfully built. More than 1,000 rooms occupies. Gentleman on the pillar on your right, Samuel Pepys. He was the one that tell us all about what happened in London in the 18th century. Sorry, 17th century. He was actually alive during the Great Fire of London. This is the Church of St. Clement to your right. It was a place of worship for the Danish. A Danish tribe used to live here after the Roman left England. It renovated. This was a place where the body of Margaret Thatcher was invited before the funeral that from here to St. Paul's Cathedral. On the same square, you will see the statue of William Gladstone, one of the excellent prime ministers during the time of Queen Victoria. And I'm sure you always have Harry Potter fan on the bus, because the Harry Potter fan recognize the building on the left. So it's the Bank of Gringotts in the movie Harry Potter, and in fact is the Australia House. It's actually been used in several other movies, but probably the Harry Potter fan know it as the Bank of Gringotts. It's Australia Commission, deals with all the documents of the Australians. On the left now we have this used to be owned by the BBC Radio. In fact, there's a statue on the top which is still remains. So that is called the Bush House. It's now owned by the King's College, one of the largest and most famous colleges in central London. In the old days, BBC Radio used to transmit from here. Now they actually got another building. On your right, Tina Turner musical is also the entrance to Covent Garden. And on the left, the flags of India. This is the Indian embassy here in the heart of London. So you see lots of Indian symbols as well on the left-hand side. A beautiful building. You see lots of people queuing here for the visa. The people want to travel to India. But now, of course, they moved the visa offices in Clerkenwell, so people come here for other different business except the visa. Now, to your right, this is the entrance to Covent Garden. Used to be owned by the church as well. It was actually the garden of the convent in a way. Today, it's one of the most beautiful places to visit. Plenty of theatre, the Royal Opera House, plenty of artists who do open air show. This was the first place in London who allowed the people to sing, and actually called it the Piazza, which is a reminder of the Italian squares. Come to visit Covent Garden, you can buy a present, you can have a drink, you can have, of course, fun, listen to some of the songs of the people who act. And now we are on the Strand. Now the Strand comes from an old Saxon word which meant lido, and in fact all the building on the left hand side in the old days used to have always the view on the River Thames. Of course that gives the idea of lido. If you want to eat the British food, the best one, you have to come to the restaurant on the left. Simpson on the Strand. This has always been one of the most famous and prestigious places. Also because it's next to the Hotel Savoy. The only road in England where you can drive like in the continent. Look, you drive on the right and you come in from the left. Yeah? The Savoy Hotel. And the Court Hall is of course the meeting point of all the people who work and live in the area. But not too many live here because it's quite expensive, but some people will stay here occasionally. So the Strand is nowadays the place where you have lots of musical, the vaudeville theatre to your right, and the Adelphi at the moment as a musical inspired by the movie Back to the Future. Now look at the little tiny alley onto your left, and there are lots of these beautiful places hidden in there. This is the Royal Institute on the left, for example. London is full of all this little alley. And again, the Strand is taking us to Trafalgar Square. Now, do you know the royal family have a bank, well, most of the members of the royal family banks. It's the Cots Bank, it's the one here to the right. Now the building is probably been renovated, but the bank has a free crown, just as a reminder. So if you want to open your bank account, and next to you, you will see probably Camilla Parker Bowles signing checks. That's the bank that you need to find. Yeah, it also has also branches everywhere in the UK. On the left, this is the hotel over the Charing Cross station. If you look, there is a middle of there's a column in the middle of Charing Cross on the left. This is what is known as the Eleanor column. It's actually a reminder to Queen Eleanor of Castile. She was the wife of Edward I. She died in the north of England. The king was very upset about her death and organized a funeral from the north to London. 13 stops of the National Gallery, the famous dome. As I said, over 2,200 paintings. At the moment, there's also an exhibition dedicated to the Italian painter Raphael. Now, the private exhibition, you have to pay the ticket for them, while you can see the rest of the collection for free. Do we have time? Yeah. Take me to Waterloo, yeah. Right, Trafalgar Square, as I said, a tribute to the Battle of Trafalgar. Most of the square is occupied with statues of people, and Ken Livingstone, one of the first men of London, said nobody even knows those people. We need to get rid of the statues. But of course, the city of Westminster did not agree on that. But what they did was they left a pillar empty, which is used to place a work of modern art. And at the moment, you probably a sculpture of a whipped cream, a drone, a fly, and a camera into the drone that is actually connected and gives a live view of Trafalgar Square. It's called The End. It's very difficult to explain. In fact, if you want to know more, you have to read the artist Ether Thompson, I think is his name. You can go online and ask it all the questions. What does the cherry on the top of the whipped cream, the fly and the drone means as the end? And then what happened? Those sculptures, they actually get sold, and of course there will be a new one to replace it. The fountains, 2 of them were added later on, and the lions on the bottom, to remember that the lion, strong arm, now it's a symbol of England as well. They look after the column of Nelson. Now to your right, this is of course the Canadian embassy. There's also rooms for several exhibitions inside. And look at the office next to the Canadian embassy. It's called the Ocean House. This used to be the place was open particularly to sell tickets for the Titanic, which unfortunately, of course you know about the tragedy and so on. On to your right, the man on the horse is the King George III. He died, he was completely mad. His son George IV, he took the title Prince Regent to reign during his, when his father was still alive, but he was not able to reign anymore because he got slightly crazy. Not because he was crazy, because they gave him some medicine to cure something that he had, but unfortunately they turned it completely dead. On to your right, this is another monument to remember the, so people died in the War of Crimea. Now this is the Pall Mall. It's the road which is famous for the Gentlemen's Club. One of the most famous one is the one on to your left now with the flag. This is the Reform Club. Reform Club is really beautiful inside. I had the privilege many years ago when I moved to London to work inside, because there's a restaurant as well. And I recognize that sometimes when I see a movie, they shot inside lots of movies. This is another club, the Royal Automobile Club. And of course, keep looking on the left, because you will see now a blue plaque, which is a reminder that the painter Thomas Gainsborough lived in this house here on the left. A very famous romantic 19th century painter who sort of placed England on his paintings, and beautiful women. I remember my aunt used to have a picture of paintings, replica, cheap one, put on the market. But I always say to people, I was born, I grew with the Gainsborough painting around my rooms. But of course, I was cheap one, it was for €2 each. Now, this is the palace built by Henry VIII, of course, St. James Palace. And this is where we're getting off now to see the changing of the guards. Okay?
Here also King Charles I is left last time before he was beheaded, because the king used to live in the Whitehall Palace, but because the Whitehall Palace was preparing its scaffolding to behead Charles I, he didn't want to sleep there, he didn't want to be wake up by the noise. Why was he beheaded? Because King Charles I defeated the government, asking for money to find. Duke of Edinburgh, God is my help. That's basically the motto. The yellow one with the 3 feathers, that's the coat of arms of the Prince of Wales. Yeah. So no matter which Prince of Wales, that will be your coat of arms. And the motto is in German, Ich mir. This was created from after Queen died. So the throne was in the end of
to visit now. The little white church is St. Margaret, dedicated to St. Margaret of Antioch, a cult that comes from Germany. The building on the left, grey looking building, is the Supreme Court. This is the last court of appeal of this country. And you probably recognize the gentleman, of course, just sitting there with a big chair, Abraham Lincoln, American president, the only one who's actually the only American president celebrated here with a statue, but there is one, of course, of Roosevelt as well, with Churchill in Mayfair. The main square is actually dedicated to other head of state. You can properly see as well Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and the first ever woman to be honored with the status is Milligan Fawcett, part of the suffragette women. They fought for the right to vote. And of course, looking at the Big Ben, Winston Churchill with his unmissable stick. So, Palace of Westminster, to your right, as I said, this is the new Palace of Westminster. Inside, you think it's like a little village. For example, you can see that's the church as well, the Church of St. Stephen. During my university years as well, I used to work inside the palace, in the restaurant. I used to work in the house, the common restaurant room, so I used to know most of the politicians in those days. And now, the bridge ahead of us is the Westminster Bridge, the one we cross. So now, on the left-hand side, soon after this building, the new office of the London Metropolitan Police, otherwise known as the Scotland Yard. So that's the new offices here on the left. This is the second office of the Scotland Yard. They used to have a small office